go. There we go. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the live stream Basketball Rules Expert Live. It's a beautiful day here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Ready to get going with the show, talking about basketball rules, National Federation of High School level, and getting better as basketball officials. Appreciate everybody joining today. If you are joining on the replay, you can always comment in the chat. We review all the comments we receive. Much appreciated for everybody joining today. I'm going to get back on my sit bones a little bit. There we go. Oh, look at that. Well framed. Fantastic. All right. How's everybody doing today? The Zooch in the house. Oh, let's control that a little bit. Papa Les in the house. Mike Goodwin, Jason Hayes, Mike Connor sporting a excellent image there. Can't quite see it. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, interesting. I have to go here. Huh. I screwed that up. Oh well. Vic Horton. Cannot see the live. Uh-oh. Oh, yeah, so we got a late start. That's all. Vic, we are live now. All is well. I got to fix this. How about now? Still small. Oh well, that's the way it goes. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to bang through this show today. Going to work on some knocking out some basics. So let's get started with a review of the show rundown. Our live schedule every Wednesday, Basketball Rules Expert Live. We look at play scenarios, National Federation of High School rules, get better with an understanding of the rules and how to take them with us onto the court. Every Friday, 5 Play Friday Live, we look at plays. It's the fun part of improving as a basketball official, analyzing game video, taking positives, eliminating negatives, and becoming better. Every other Monday, we have a Masterclass Monday. Of course, this week, we just had a Masterclass on National Federation of High School Basketball, new rules and points of emphasis for the 2021-2022 season. Today's Basketball Rules Expert is an extension of that. We'll look at some play scenarios relating to those new items from NFHS. And that's every when we run our Masterclass. Our next one will be September 13th. Topic to be decided as of yet. If you're new to the show, put new in the chat. Let me know where in the world you are officiating from. And at any point on any of our shows, you have a comment, a concern, a question, a compliment. Oh my goodness. Put it in the chat. Put your voice in the game. Excellent. All right. Cool. All right. Confusion about the start. Jay's in the house. Excellent. Randy Wilson, hello. Yes, we were. Got to make that bigger. Yeah, a little technical difficulty to start. It's gremlins. In the software. All of a sudden, my background wouldn't appear. What are you going to do? Absolutely. The coffee is flowing hard. And thanks to our fantastic show supporters. Jason, including yourself. Marcel in the beautiful South Bay. Safe from the fires. We have fires, of course, here in California. That is a thing. And although here in the Bay Area, we are distant from the fires, the flow of air often brings the smoke and et cetera into and ruins our air quality here in the Bay Area. And it's always adjacent. Do not forget to like, I'll tell you what, let's not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notify bell so you don't, and share the video content with other basketball officials. Yes. Chad's in the house. Excellent. How good to see you. Oh, Jay's down in Florida as well. That Florida contingent is strong. Oh, Billy Mack with the Australian son-in-law. Hey, mate. We do watch an occasional Australian television show here on the Netflix in the Austin household. Niner Gang. Okay, who's that? Let me know. Here's the real Mike Connors sporting the fantastic. I was looking at a YouTube clip of, and his secretary, I do believe, was named Peggy, and she was African American, and it was like, oh, this is, there was a dynamic where she's like thankful and hugs him, and he's like, oh, very odd, very odd. Ref is in the house. Awesome. All right, Vic, we're all good. Oh, both the NFHS and NCAA men use one signal for both player control and team control. So maybe that was the sort of the genesis. Is NFHS said, hey, we want to, more closely align. We like some aspect of the NCAA men of having a single mechanic. I do not believe that is the case in NCAA women. I'll find out soon. Yeah, sit bones. So right. So I have a Concept 2 rower, right? So when you do indoor rowing, you sit on a hard plastic seat. And important in the whole mechanics of the equation is to be up on the sit bones, which is, the bones in your so that it improves your posture and keeps your hips, swinging, etc. So we're in that mode, doing a lot of rowing in the month of September. I can tell you more about that in a future episode. I wouldn't know how. Jarosser 4 in Texas. Richard, new St. Louis, Missouri. All right, our Missouri, we got the Zooch, we got Jason Hayes, and now we have Richard Kurlov. The Missouri contingent is strong. Hey, Vic, that'd be great. You can always reach out to me through hello@abetterofficial.com, or you may have my phone number. You can always give me a call. Chris Janish is in the house. Suzette Morris, Texas. All right, so we got Florida, Texas, and Missouri, and California. Strong this morning. And Ned Soya saying Turkey is not to be left behind. We are international. Awesome. Fantastic. All right, I want to get started with this show, and I'm going to do it in a unique fashion. Let me just make sure I got what to do. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm ready to go. Okay. So I approach the huddle and I'm about to say first horn, and all of a sudden the coach drops a loud F-bomb on one of his players. Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Basketball Rules Expert, the show where we take National Federation of High School basketball rules, we lift them off the printed page, breathe life into them, simplify, clarify, amplify, so that you can take them with you onto the basketball court where it is most important. Greetings again, everybody. My name is Greg Austin with ABetterOfficial.com. We craft video to help basketball officials get better and take control of their officiating career. I've been a high school basketball official here in the San Francisco Bay Area for over a decade, and I consider myself to be a basketball rules expert. This show is all about helping you on a journey to becoming a basketball rules expert as well. Have to give a shout out, as we always do, to our fantastic show supporters. Where are our show supporters? Boy, oh boy, I'll tell you. Have to give a shout out to our fantastic show supporters. Papa Les O'Connor Jr., Jay Ship, Sylvia Bigot, the Notorious SMB, and the Zooch, Gerald Masucci, and Luis Fuentes. Much appreciated and much love. You want to support the show? You can always... Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You want to support the show? There's always an opportunity to go to abetterofficial.com/coffee. There will be always a link in the show notes below. All right, this week we are focusing on National Federation of High School new rules and points of emphasis for 2021-2022 season. Every year, NFHS comes out with new rules and points of emphasis, and the directives are focused for all the stakeholders in the game, not just officials. But as officials, we need to interpret those points of emphasis and new rules changes and incorporate those into our game. NFHS says these are areas of concern that the game needs to be improved on. One of the points of emphasis here is traveling. Is the NFHS saying we need more traveling calls in the game? No. We need to be better at making proper rulings on traveling scenarios, right? So we always need to have an understanding of how we approach points of emphasis and new rules. Now, new rules, on the other hand, are very clear and very straightforward. So on Monday, we had a masterclass. Friday, we will have 5-Play Friday Live. The complete series will be in a playlist that's available here, right, at any time, and there will be a link in the show notes below to the complete playlist, Masterclass, Basketball Rules Expert, and 5-Play Friday. Oh, boy, oh boy. Illinois making a statement, says trying to step up. I see. Okay. I'm doing all the things. All right. Let's do this and... Right. All right. So with that, with the points of emphasis and new rules in mind, let's take a look at our very first play scenario. Amazing. Amazing. Hold on. Okay. All right. think you have things under control, you don't have things under control. All right, with that in mind, let's take a look at our very first play scenario. A1 is charged with her 5th personal foul, and upset at herself, she reacts with a loud profanity. The covering official also charges A1 with a technical foul. The officials rule that A1 is disqualified for getting the 5th foul, and that the technical foul is also charged indirectly to the head coach, since it occurred after the disqualifying foul. Were the officials correct? Yes or no? All right, so we have a play scenario. A1 commits a foul, reacts like, right? Loud expletive. So the official has a foul on the player, which is the player's 5th foul, and then a subsequent player technical on that player. Or is it a player technical? That's the key question here. All right, so we just need to know our basics on this play. The officials say, okay, that was a disqualifying foul. That was her 5th foul. And then she had the technical after that. So so that goes on the head coach. That's an indirect on the head coach, right? Because she was a disqualified player. That's the thinking the officials had on the play. So let's break it down. First of all, we have the foul, and then we have a player who commits an unsporting action. Even though the profanity wasn't directed at the official, it wasn't directed at an opponent, it was basically a moment of frustration. One of our points of emphasis here from NFHS this year is to recognize that that is no excuse, right? That behavior should be penalized as unsporting. It's a scholastic environment. Scholastic environment rules apply, and behavior expectations are there. So we can't ignore frustration offenses, even if they're not directed at opponent or the officials, etc. So that's the first thing. Properly assess a T in the situation. Now let's talk about the adjudication of the play, right? We need to know when a player becomes disqualified. It's not the commission of the 5th foul that disqualifies the player. Clearly, by rule, a player is disqualified when they have committed their 5th foul and the official informs the head coach. That is the magic moment. Boom, that player is now disqualified. They are now bench personnel by rule. Their behavior as bench personnel, right? If they do something unsporting at that point, that the coach is responsible for that, and they would receive an indirect technical foul if that was the case. In this instance, the technical foul, the player is not yet disqualified, and so there would be no indirect technical foul for the head coach. So in this scenario, were the officials correct? Mostly, but in the end, no. They were correct to assess the foul. They were correct to assess the technical foul, but they were incorrect in assessing an indirect technical on the head coach. Wow. Nailed it. Papa Les and and Randy gonna rile up that Chicagoland contingent. Zach Burns, Wyoming. All right, Chris Janish and Jack Burns, bringing it. Yeah, yep. I had such high hopes for a smooth show. You would not believe. Correct, Mike. It is not an indirect. So just understanding the basics, right? The basics here are understanding when a player becomes disqualified. It would be easy for officials to say, okay, we're trying to parse this out. If we didn't have that basic grounding, fundamental knowledge of when a player becomes disqualified. Not until you notify the coach. We got a sharp crew here. Right, and if we never did, you know, yeah. So in this instance, it is a player foul and a player technical foul, even though it was their 6th foul, right? But until the coach is notified, they are still considered to be a player. And once the coach is notified of the 5 fouls or 6, that player is disqualified. Right, right. So less, yeah, and it's easy to get things scrambled. We do have, as officials, when a player is disqualified, a notification of the player, but that's really just convenience, or, you know, it's not a factor in the player becoming disqualified or not. I want to let that good player know early. All right, fantastic. We're rocking. Let's move on now to our very next play scenario. Dribbler A1 performs a Euro step, catching the ball while they are airborne, then taking a step in one direction and quickly taking a second step in another direction before laying the ball in. The officials rule a traveling violation. Were the officials correct? Yes or no? A Euro step, right? A common move that has, come to the National Federation, come to the high school level, a Euro step. Some officials see it, and the timing of the play is funky, right? Part of a Euro step, traditionally, in its usual execution, is that the pace of the dribbler is changed. They were going fast, and that change of direction, they slow down dramatically, and it can fool officials if they are focused exclusively on the fact that, oh, that's a Euro step, that must be illegal. That's a spin move, that must be illegal. That's a jump stop, that must be whatever, right? NFHS says this is a problem, that Euro steps are being adjudicated improperly. But all traveling violations, the key is fundamentally understanding which is the pivot foot and whether or not that pivot foot, once the dribble is terminated, is lifted and returned to the floor. It's as simple as that. So what we obviously need to do is focus on finding the pivot foot as officials. That's the first step. We can't just judge the play on its, okay, I saw the play, it looked this, that, or the other thing. We need to know that player established a pivot foot with their left foot. That left foot was lifted and returned to the floor. Then we have a traveling violation. In this instance, the player sounds like they executed it legally. They caught the ball while they were in the air. So they terminated their dribbler while they were in the air, caught the ball, landed on one foot, that became their pivot foot, landed on the other, maybe lifted both feet and released a try, but that is a legal move because they never lifted and then returned the pivot foot to the floor. That would be illegal. So in this instance, were the officials correct when they had ruled a traveling violation? No. No, they were not. Legal play by rule. Yeah, we tried to describe it. It's difficult to describe traveling plays. It's easier describing an illegal or legal move as when we get to the spin move. It's similar. It's tough to do in words. It's much easier to do in video. So join us Friday for 5 Play Friday Live. Yep, our crew is struggling. It's true. Okay. I'm in for we'll do basketball rules expert after hours. In the evening. And we could do a drinking game. Fantastic. Da, da, da. All right, our crew is open. All right. Our crew is struggling. They're 0 for 2. Let's look at our very next play scenario. Dribbler A1 performs a spin move, grabbing the ball with their right foot on the floor. A1 then spins and put their left foot down and then their right foot before softly laying the ball in. The officials rule a traveling violation on A1. Were the officials correct? Yes or no, right? Spin move. Different on this play than the previous play in that the player caught the ball with one of their feet on the floor. They make the spin move. It's elegant. It's fast. It's, very athletic. They put down their other foot, then return their pivot foot to the floor before laying the ball in. This is a violation by rule. The official properly identified the establishment of the pivot foot when the player terminated their dribble and caught the ball with a foot on the floor. Established the pivot foot, they lifted the pivot foot, legal. When they stepped with the other foot, but then they returned the pivot foot to the floor, illegal by rule. In this instance, were the officials correct? Yes, they were. It is difficult for players to execute a spin move legally. They need to be very proficient. Most often at the high school level, when players execute spin moves, they are illegal by rule. And if we look at the video of the plays, it's very simple. They caught the ball with a foot on the floor. That foot is a pivot foot by rule, right? If they take just a single step, an additional step, and lay the ball in, legal. But most often players will take a step, return the pivot foot to the floor, and travel by rule. All right, our crew making a statement. They will not miss all the calls tonight. And I didn't say that ES word. The officials are correct. Well, all right, so Jason said, so some officials have difficulty with spin moves. A helpful tip is if a spin move is executed, my assumption is, when I see that move, is that it is illegal because it is so difficult to do legally. That's my assumption. Now, if that player proves to me in their actions that they did it legally, then we have a legal play. But I'm leaning, when a player executes a spin move, towards ruling a violation. If they, that's going to be my default. If they can prove with their actions on the court that it was a legal move, all good. All good. Yeah, sometimes players are helpful, like big players attempt to do a spin move, and it's basically done in slow motion. And it's much easier for our brain to process those. I had a video a couple of years ago of a big. She was very athletic, right? But she's attempting, and it's like watching a smaller player do it in slow motion. It covers a longer distance, and it's just done at a slower pace. And it's like, oh, thank you. That's much easier to evaluate the legality of the play. But when small, quick players make a spin move, boy, it's lightning quick, and they can fool us. But that's why we get paid the big bucks. Come on. So the Zooch says, if Jason missed the illegal move earlier, am I supposed to be consistent with him and let it go this time? That's interesting. Interesting. I had a game a couple of seasons ago, and one of the officials on the crew was taking a lot of heat from one of the teams. And he had ruled a spin move travels on that team twice early in the game. And we had a situation later in the game where an opponent had this, had a spin move to the basket. And it's just like there was zero chance that I was going to miss that play, right? I did it both because of the illegality of the rule, but because it matched the play calling of my partner, right? So now we have spin move travels on both teams, right? We need to be aware of the calls that our crew has put in the game. It's a factor, right? We could say, and we have to, because again, what is our number one objective? Is to be consistent as a crew. That's our number one objective, right? We have big aspirations that we're going to be, our association is going to be super consistent. All the officials in the state are going to be super consistent. We're all going to call it the same way. National Federation says, okay, all the officials across the country are all going to rule these plays in the same fashion. These are very aspirational goals. But in this gym tonight, in this game, with these two teams, with this group of officials, that's where we have to be consistent, right? You can say, oh, wait, you're deviating from the way that the game should be called, etc. But the stakeholders in the game can say, I can work with this, but I can't work with this official is calling spin move travels and this official is not, right? They called it against us. You're not calling it against them, right? That is what we cannot have. That's a higher priority, fixing that imbalance, than it is to say, okay, we've matched we have great consistency with our association and other officials in the state and across the country, etc. Right? It always comes down to this game on this night and serving the game, treating the game properly, as opposed to thinking in loftier ideals. Now we can focus on it. We could talk about it at the first time out. We could talk about it at halftime. We could say, listen, we need to do you cannot miss that call. We need to do this by the book. This is a violation by rule, etc., etc. Now, the other factor is we missed the call. Is it because we missed the call because we were unsure, right? If we're unsure about a violation, then our default should be putting no whistle in the game. We need to be sure about violations so that we can properly serve the game. Yeah, I mean, we start the game and we basically dictate how this game is going to be called tonight. And one of the challenges we have at the high school level is maybe inconsistency with partners, right? We have partners who are on a large spectrum of understanding of the rules, understanding of mechanics, great play callers, not so great play callers, experienced, not so experienced, etc. All of these variables come into play. There is less consistency. If we go to the NCAA Division I level, there's going to be a much narrower gap between the officials, right? You may have a new official and an experienced official, but in terms of play calling, they're going to be more consistent because there is a level of accountability at that level. At the high school level, we just don't have that level of accountability. So we have, it's a bit of a Wild West scenario where we have to come together as a crew and work through it. Yeah, mentally catalog plays as the game goes on. One of the things I struggle with personally is like, okay, I've been cataloging all these plays. By the time you get to the end of the game in the fourth period, you're carrying around, a thick case book of plays from the game. It can bog you down a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so, you can approach to this scenario in a sense of great purity. Okay. Listen, there's no excuse for not calling the game by the rules, this, that, and the other thing. We have to be great play callers, rule illegal based on illegal activity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. But that's a goal. That is a game plan, but in the game itself, the game presents us with situations that we weren't maybe anticipating. Our partner, the consistency of the crew, the focus level of the crew, etc. All of these variables come into play, and our great lofty goals have to be modified a little bit. We need to steer this ship through these waters and get to the end of the game and allow these two teams to compete safely and fairly. And that's the challenge, and that's part of the fun. And what makes our role as officials is each and every night. It's not just okay, by the book, this, that, the other thing. There's variables that come into play that make it challenging, interesting, exciting, etc. to work through and do a good job for the game and the stakeholders in the game. All right. Got to remember. All right. Okay, let's take a look at our next play scenario. Dribbler A1 catches the ball with the right foot touching the floor, then jumps off that foot and alights on both feet simultaneously, but in a staggered stance. The officials rule a traveling violation. That's not what the officials ruled. Holy cow. Okay. Were the officials correct? Yes or no? All right, let's take a look at that. Dribbler A1 catches the ball with the right foot touching the floor, then jumps off that foot and alights on both feet simultaneously. So a dribbler picks up the ball with one foot, that is their pivot foot, jumps in the air and lands with both feet. No, they don't land. They alight. What a fantastic word. They alight with both feet simultaneously, but in a staggered stance. That has no bearing on the play whatsoever, the staggered stance. When we look at rules, plays, and scenarios, we have to take them for what they are. Player jumps off 1 foot, dribbler holding the ball, jumps off 1 foot, lands on 2 feet. That is a legal move by rule. Even though the pivot foot is returned to the floor, when it's done off of 1 foot, landing on 2 foot, kind of like a hopscotch scenario where you jump off 1, land on 2, legal by rule. Now, the rules also state after this action, you cannot pivot on either foot. Neither foot can be a pivot foot after that move, but the move itself is legal. So in this instance where the officials ruled a traveling violation, were the officials correct? No. No, they were not. Did that. Okay. Two. Landed on both feet. Nicholas, good to see you. Staggered, I guess, doesn't refer to the timing of the landing, but rather the staggered stance, 1 foot in front of the other. and that can be extreme where they sort of twist sideways or do something funny and land. So staggered in this instance refers to that. It's actually, this play was sort of taken from a casebook play in the casebook. But that could be confusing. I understand why that would be confusing. Yeah, baby. It's all about San Francisco here. Legal jump stop. Traveling violations, when you talk about traveling violations, right, it's a great example of how officials may learn, right? If you have a discussion about in a classroom setting or in a association meeting setting, and we're talking about traveling and we're using words to describe actions, you could talk for 30 minutes and, some people are going to be like, okay, I hear what you're saying. You show one video that shows the play, it's like, oh, now I know what you mean, right? It's much more easily conveyed by video, but in this show, we're looking at that as our format. Rules in the text. Yep, crew's struggling again. One out of 4 is not a great call accuracy. Puppet Show Tuesdays. All right. Let's take a look now at another play scenario. A1, in attempting to screen, takes a stationary position in the path of moving B1. The position of A1 is so close that B1 cannot avoid A1 and gets knocked off balance. The officials rule an illegal screen on A1 and uses the punch signal to indicate a team control foul. Were the officials correct? Yes or no? All right, we're bringing in a couple of aspects of National Federation new rules and points of emphasis. First of all, a focus on screening. Now, again, if we're focusing on screening, do we need to rule more illegal screens or less illegal screens? The key is to understanding what is an illegal screen. Okay, in this instance, a teammate of a player is setting a screen so close to a moving opponent that that opponent does not have time to avoid the screen. This is an illegal action by rule, and this is a team control foul by rule. Were our officials correct in that instance? Yes, they were. This is an illegal screen and is properly ruled. But unfortunately, our officials, based on habits, brought out the punch. Long live the punch. Our new mechanic, we're eliminating the punch. Our new mechanic for a team control foul is to just use the player control foul. So we have a fist up, we have a hand, that same hand behind the head and the point. That is the proper signal on this play. When we go to the table, I'm assuming we would use the same. We have a team control foul, right? We're going to use that at the table when we report, or it's just a blocking foul at the table. But our official habitually uses the punch. That would be the incorrect portion of the play, right? Just a reminder that National Federation has replaced the punch with the behind the head signal. Long live the punch. Mike's got it. Hey, and Jay, that's correct, right? So, you may say, just show me the video. Just show me the video, right? But when the test arrives, there's no video, right? Or if you're presented with somebody who's explaining a play scenario to you, no, not so much. or if you have to explain a ruling, we're going to have to do it, in a verbal format, but it's going to be related to the explanation of rules and rulings using proper language, etc. So we obviously need to be well versed in the whole process. So it's a double-edged sword. We could be great and learning via video, but we're going to have to rely on text at some point as officials. Okay, it's going on. Vic is pointing out that the kids are properly instructed, right? And we have to rule traveling violations. And the kid, the player, right? So there's a couple things here. First, players are instructed about how to execute moves. They may see the move in a video and they want to do it. They saw another player do it, they want to do it, or they may receive some coaching about, hey, use this move, let's practice this move, etc. And the coaching, is basically teaching the player an illegal move. Could be a step back where a player catches the ball with their left foot on the floor, steps back with their right, returns their left to the floor, and releases a try. They've practiced it in the gym for hours, and then they get out on the court, and the officials rule a traveling violation. That's frustrating for the kids. That's frustrating for the coach. What do you mean? That's what I taught you, etc. Right? So that is a frustration. The other variable is that players are trying to execute a move legally, but they are just simply not skilled enough yet to do it legally, right? That step back move, where they land 1 foot, 2 foot after stepping off a pivot foot, right? If they improve their skill, they could land on both simultaneously, right? So the other factor is the kids are not quite skilled enough to execute some moves. Right. Yeah, Gus is making an appearance. We must have an Amazon delivery or something. I don't know. He keeps us safe. Let's just put it that way. Randy said you can't quote silence. We want to say, Coach, who? Sometimes we can have fun with that. I like to have fun with coaches when a team is missing all of their free throws. I turn to the bench and I say, who's in charge of free throw instruction over here? We do like to have fun with teams as we officiate. All right, fantastic. So another play scenario is on the docket. Let's take a look. Player A1 is trapped near the far sideline by B1 and B2. The center official, tableside, hears a request for a timeout and turns to verify that it was Team A head coach requesting. The official then turned back to the court and sees that the ball has become loose. The official does not grant the timeout request. Was the official correct? Yes or no, right? Point of emphasis, National Federation of High School Basketball rules is to properly grant timeouts by ensuring that the ball is in player control during a live ball scenario and that the timeout is properly requested. Just hearing a timeout request doesn't mean that the head coach made the request. So our official looks to confirm, yes, they want a timeout, looks back to the court to see if player control still exists, sees that it does not exist, and does not grant the timeout. Was the official correct? Yes or no? Yes. Yes, they were. This would be the proper procedure on a play like this. Verification of the request, verification, and being assured that it is a legal request and can be properly granted. So our officials were correct in this instance. That was a tough one to concoct. Yep. That's basically a habitual approach that we want, is verification, verification. Now, if we are in close proximity with that coach, we recognize their voice, we don't need the visual. We don't need the turn back, right? We can be aware of what's going on the court, right? We could see the player holding the ball, the request. Maybe at that point the ball, starts to become loose or becomes loose. But boom, we come strong and say, and sort of timestamp the action. Player was holding the ball, coach requested the timeout. It takes me an instant to put air in the whistle and put it all together, but I'm going to timestamp that event, holding the ball, timeout, A, right? I will usually add that verbalization, right? Holding the ball. Right? Maybe something has happened since the whistle has blown, etc., or there's confusion about whether there was control. But when that timeout was requested, we timestamp it. But sometimes, maybe the opposing coach is down a ways, and I'm not sure they requested a timeout. Right? I'm unsure. I turn. I see them giving some sort of signal, for a timeout. I may need that verification from the coach before I can put a whistle in the play, turn back to the play, and my ability to coordinate those two events now has disappeared, right? If I have to turn my head, I don't know when the ball became loose. Again, it's how we make our big bucks. But of course, I will say that properly recognizing timeout requests is a point of emphasis. That's fantastic. But in each and every game, the crew should make it a point of emphasis. When a coach requests a timeout, let's not miss it. Let's not, if that was properly requested while they had player control and we don't grant it, then we've let the game down, right? Everything was done properly. The result, the ball gets loose, there's a turnover, etc. Don't miss your timeouts. Don't miss substitutions. Properly administer the game. That's a goal when we go into each and every game. Yep. But we got to own it, right? But also remember, Jason, point of emphasis. It's for all of the stakeholders in the game, right? So if you are a coach, it's just like, well, this doesn't refer to me. No, that's not, a couple of years back, there was a point of emphasis that coaches need to take responsibility for the team's uniform. NFHS says we want coaches to be more engaged and aware of the rules so that less crap is dumped into the laps of the officials, right? If coaches know, hey, you can't wear that, that's illegal, right? They could check their players in advance. It doesn't mean that they have any, extra responsibility if there is illegal uniforms, etc. So this is a point of emphasis that coaches need to take heed of. Maybe they, in a perfect world, instruct their players to request timeouts on the court and not make everything go through the coach. That's going to be on a case-by-case scenario. But coaches need to know that they are responsible and that it's a point of emphasis for officials to verify before granting. And of course, if they were on the opposite end of the spectrum, they would want that. They'd want that verification if their opponent was requesting a timeout. The rule says we must be sure that there is player control during a live ball scenario. Obviously, in a dead ball scenario, all bets are off, but our crew is getting it together now, improving their call percentage. Let's take a look at our next play scenario. During pregame warm-ups, an official notices that home team player A1 is wearing a red head covering, as well as black long sleeve undershirt and leggings. A1 explains that for religious reasons, she keeps her hair and body covered. The officials rule this to be legal. Were the officials correct? Yes or no? Okay, so home team player, so we know they're wearing white, has a red head covering. Let's assume that it's obviously a religious head covering, or basically a hair covering, or something that comes down, right? Could extend below the chin, etc. It could be loose on the shoulders. But in addition, the player is wearing black long sleeve undershirt and black leggings. The officials rule this to be legal, right? The religious exemption, which is now does not require a state letter, NFHS says that head coverings for religious reasons are legal. There are no color restrictions, therefore, on those head coverings. So wearing something red, purple, green, blue with a white uniform, perfectly legal. The leggings, black leggings, may be legal. A team with their player equipment, wristband, arm sleeve, leg sleeve, tights, etc., knee sleeve, elbow sleeve, all of these things, part of a package, can be, for the home team, can be black, white, or beige. But everybody has to be the same, all three. So our leggings we don't know whether those are legal by rule, but an undershirt is an extension of the jersey. If this player wants to wear a long sleeve undershirt, that undershirt in this instance must be white. So in this instance where the officials said that the package was legal, were the officials correct? No. No, they were not. Head covering, legal. Leggings, possibly. There's nothing to indicate that they were illegal, but the undershirt was illegal by rule. Now, when we're faced with a scenario in a game where we have a player who essentially needs to keep their body covered, that's the deal. That's what we're dealing with there. We need to find a solution. They have a long sleeve undershirt that does not that is not legal by rule, and they say, oh, it's religious, right? The religious exemption is for the head covering only. That's the important thing to take away from the change in the rule on this play. That's where we're going to leave it. MPOA officials, where is that from? We need a tiebreaker between California, Missouri, Florida, and Texas. You can tip the scales. Right. Let's see how we got here. I'm trying to come back here. Billy Mack, I disagree with you. They do not have a responsibility for illegal. You got me. They do have a responsibility for illegal uniforms, not for illegal equipment. If players wearing earrings, that is not the head coach has no responsibility by rule for that. The point of emphasis a few years ago was NFHS said, come on, coaches, come on, get on board, learn the rules, be proactive, make the game better by taking the pressure off of officials to be the uniform police. I think it had a positive effect. I think coaches are willing to learn that stuff. I think it'd be great if teams, designated that player on the bench to be sort of to take care of stuff and be knowledgeable about what's illegal and legal. I think that would be a great thing. But in the end, the officials have the responsibility. Okay, I'm still on timeouts. Right, so Randy, as long as the rest of the team is either wearing black sleeves, fine. Sleeves needed to match, but the head covering doesn't match. We're talking about an undershirt sleeve, not an arm sleeve. Undershirts must be the same color as the predominant color of the jersey, without exception. MPOA from the great state of Maryland. He's a terrapin. He or she is a terrapin. Yeah, so common sense is going to come into play here. How can we find a solution for this player, right? Our motivation in these instances is always to find a solution to allow players to play. The whole point of interscholastic activity is players playing. It's a participation sport. We can find technicalities to say, oh, you can't play with that, right? Some things are important to use rules technicalities. You cannot participate wearing jewelry, right? That's very straightforward. This is a dangerous situation. Wearing an illegal colored undershirt is not a dangerous situation. It's a violation by a rule. So what is our possible fix, right? Do we have another player who's wearing a long sleeve undershirt that is the correct color, right? Do we have some opportunity to, basically we want to find a solution. Now, if we're going to have a player who's going to take off their uniform top and take off an undershirt, I would assume this player would not be one who's going to do it in the confines of the bench area. But of course, players are not allowed to do that by rule. We would maybe take the player to the coach and say, Coach, we have a uniform situation here we need to rectify. Here's the thing, though. We can't have players removing their jerseys within the visual confines, so your player has to go outside the visual confines, remedy the situation, and return before we can allow that player to participate. If we have a solution, that's fantastic. But that's what we need to do. Sometimes we need to be proactive about that. If we just tell a player, hey, you can't wear that undershirt, we turn around, we turn back, and they're like, their tops off and their undershirts off, and they're popping on their uniform top again. Then we haven't really managed the situation properly. No Despair Bear jumping in from Kentucky. Awesome. Oh, that's fantastic. We need more Kentucky officials on the case. I'm going to try to... Why can't I fix that? All right. Okay, so we have a legal... Let's take a look at our next play scenario. As the official moves towards the huddle to inform that the first horn has sounded, they hear the head coach loudly use profanity directed towards a player. The official assesses a direct technical foul on the head coach. Was the official correct? Yes or no? Point of emphasis from National Federation of High School, unsporting conduct, and that a coach is not immune from unsporting conduct rules simply because they are not addressing an official, but rather addressing one of their players in the confines of a team huddle, right? This is the whole point of emphasis, is that it's a scholastic environment. Behavior is expected to meet a certain level of decorum, and that simply because the head coach is in an environment, a cloistered environment where they are with their players, they are not immune from the rules of unsporting conduct. So the profanity in this instance, NFHS says, should be penalized. So in this instance, were the officials correct? Yes or no? By rule, yes. Yes, they were. Now, it's easy, right? Unfortunately, we work in the real world, and how we're going to handle these situations becomes, in a game management fashion, is the real challenge here. Let's remember, though, in this environment, our coach didn't, let's see. I don't have it. Let's see. Let's see if I have it. Our coach says, you need to get your in the game. Let's see if I can do that better. You need to get your game in the game, right? Or something like that, right? Where they use a profanity directed at a player. And is this an unusual occurrence that coaches get into players and use language that is local and, the way that the team communicates with one another, et cetera? This is how the coach communicates. Uses, sprinkles in profanity. It's not done in an abusive fashion. It's done in that's just their coaching style. It leads to certain results with the players. This is sort of an accepted part of the game of basketball. This is our challenge, right? And the coach feels that they have a safe haven when they are communicating with their players in the huddle, right? That same coach may say, well, I'm not going to yell that to the player during the game, but when I am in a coaching environment, I'm looking him in the eye, I'm going to be direct and maybe use more colloquial language, right, to communicate with that player. This is our challenge. NFHS says, okay, this is a problem, though. This is a problem. This coach loudly expresses this on the court. People can hear it, etc. But also, it's just not acceptable behavior by NFHS standards. Okay, this is going to be an interesting challenge for officials. That's all we're going to say about that. Mike Connors, the huddle is not a safe haven. It is not true. Give me just a second here. Oh, I see. Billy Mack says, depends on the exact words and volume. I think in our case play scenario, or I guess using our intro, it's an F-bomb. It's a loud F-bomb, right? So I don't know what that means. Right. So this again becomes the scenario, right? So with all penalty enforcement, we have a ladder, right? The subtle warning, the subtle informal warning, the direct informal warning, the administrative warning, and the enforcement of penalty, either in this case a direct technical or a flagrant technical, right? In some environments, this may be considered to be a flagrant technical. And associations may dictate that as well. But that's the challenge, right? NFHS says this is not acceptable, maximum enforcement, okay, right? But this is going to maybe take some time to implement. But that's the purpose of the point of emphasis. All right. So after the show, we're going to stick around. We're going to look at some plays on video for our live streamers. But I want to do a quick wrap of the show, see if I can do it properly. Right. Okay. No, that's not right. That should not be happening. All right. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the show. Much appreciated, much love. If you find content like this valuable, time to do all the things. like, subscribe, and notify, and share the video content with other basketball officials who could find value as well. As always, thanks to our fantastic show supporters, Les O'Connor Jr., Jay Ship, Sylvia Biggett, Gerald Mazzucci, and Luis Fuentes. Much appreciated and much love. You want to support the show? You can always head to abetterofficial.com. I'll put a link above and in the show notes below. Let's see. Okay. Since it's part of Point of Emphasis Week, we have the Masterclass here. We'll have the 5-Play Friday here. Make sure to watch those videos as well, and we'll see you in the very next video. Take care. Oh, man. Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. So I think this is really going to be this profanity and huddle and coach behavior in those environments. First of all, it's like you have officials who have been officiating high school basketball for decades, and maybe this, so that's the other factor. As basketball players, we had coaches who treated us in this fashion. That's how it's done. That's our understanding of how coaching works, is the coach is sometimes going to use tough language to communicate with their players. It made me a better player, right? There are going to be basketball officials who have that mentality. NFHS says this is an area of concern, and we're addressing it in this fashion. So the adoption of addressing it is going to be something that's going to be put onto states and put onto associations and put onto officials. And this is going to be something that's really inconsistently applied across the room, or across the country, rather. I think that is a given. Let's do this. So let's take a look at some play scenarios. Headgear. Come on now. All right, so player drives, middle of the lane, player goes down. All right, so we have a transition play. Center's in great position, lead is in great position, trailing the play gets left behind here. So we have a verticality play. Somebody needs to make an adjudication about the legality of the defender, whether they move towards their opponent, whether the contact on the resulting play is legal or illegal. Now, in a verticality play, we could have, if the defensive player was legal, let's see, if I go here and we say, I see. I'm poorly prepared. Here we go. Right, so our question here is this player here, and where they leave the floor from and where they ultimately land. That's the key question on this play. That player pretty clearly jumps forward and creates that contact. No call. If we watch the lead, there's a little flinch. right? So this is a coverage play. The defender on the play is the responsibility of the lead. It's in the lead's primary. Lead's in a great position. There's not much else going on. They have a clear look at the play, right? That's the lead's call. The center official, though, has the best look on the play. They can see the A to B movement the best, right? So this becomes a trust scenario, in my mind. I'm going to turn the sound down. Becomes a trust environment, right? So it's the lead's call. It's your call. Is that a foul? You're going to call it? Yes? No? Right? That is a foul. I'm going to call it as the center official. That's what we'd expect on this play. Yeah, Mike, this game's still going on. Paige is the star in this one. Right, but that's a play that the crew has got to get. My preparation is poor. All right, so we're going to have the one play. That's a foul. That needs to be a whistle needs to put on the play. If you are the center official, I would expect a whistle, a cadence whistle on this play. Trail, obviously in a tougher position to put a whistle on a play that is an obvious foul, and the lead really has no excuse on this. That's a foul. All right. I'm poorly prepared. I apologize to do additional video plays. I'm not set up for it. I wanted to do a little something post-game for those in the live stream. Mike is asking whether if the ball was tipped. If it was instantaneous. I'd say it was not an obvious shot blocked. But the legality of the player here is not really in question. That player moves from A to B and creates the contact. And that contact is not, is it incidental? It's pretty significant blow. You see it at the hip when the players contact the offensive player is not just embellishing here. She took a pretty good shot and right in the midsection. Right? So, all good. All right. That's our bonus. That's our bonus. Make sure that's down. We're going to bring that in. I'm going to say thanks for everybody joining the live stream today. We're just about at the 90-minute mark, maybe the 85-minute mark. With our late start. I appreciate everybody joining. Make it a great day. And we'll see everybody on Friday for 5 Play Friday Live. We'll look at gameplay scenarios that help us get better as basketball officials. Appreciate everybody joining today, especially lots of new people in the chat. Much appreciated and much love. We'll see you in the next one. Have a great one. Bye-bye.